Hey folks, and welcome back to the channel. So we're going to be taking a look at the current situation in LUNC, and I'm going to try and bring you up to date as to where I am with things inside my own head and how I'm really feeling with everything as it stands. I've got a cup of tea. Let me know what you're drinking this morning. Crypto Bubbles is looking a little bit on, a little bit off. Other than that, all we can do is just kind of hope BTC makes an impulse move upwards. So the current situation in LUNC, it's a little bit peculiar if you're not well in depth, I guess, with the history of things. And there's some people are a little bit confused as to being able to just simply pick up everything and all of a sudden it all just fall into place. It doesn't work like that. We're also seeing people moaning about there not being anybody to update the SDK. And we don't need to update the SDK unless we're going to follow the sort of foundation enterprise route that's being laid out by TFL, which is, multi-chain cross compatibility as standard. It's something that anybody in the cosmos can more or less have. You just need to put the work in from your side and make the connect. My biggest worry with LUNC is everybody wants to be the person who represents the LUNC chain. Everybody's going to scramble to try and control that, when realistically what actually needs to happen is more or less the people who have access to the repository, the L1, a development team who are going to be there to deploy and develop what TFL are asking, and then probably chain gurus as well. And the likelihood is, because it involves foundation being endpoints, you're probably going to want an all nodes representative involved. Past that, right, it all becomes very political, and you're going to have to propose everything through governance anyway. So every validator and every project wanting to be involved in the sort of deployment development scale of things, it doesn't make any sense, because you really don't bring anything relevant to it, if that makes sense. Even, for example, a project manager wouldn't bring anything relevant to it other than being able to outline tasks, as to which chain gurus can actually do this. Now, we are going to be going over a few different things, so buckle up for the ride. And something I want everybody to understand is we don't have control of the repo. The L1 does. Okay, we don't have a team. The L1 does. I work with the developers that I work with, and everybody knows that. I've never taken any money from this chain nor asked for any. The L1 has, and they do. I've not backpedaled, right? I'm not the one who brokered a deal behind closed doors. That deal fell apart because it was made behind closed doors and it was against the will of the community, right? I'm not the one who backpedaled back to creating a site, a wallet, and trying to please the community after messing up. We're not the ones burying our heads in the sands, and the issues realistically lie with the L1 currently, because they're burying their heads in the sand. They're ignoring us all. We've offered them replacement devs. We've offered them helping hands, and they're just not interested. We've offered them a sit down. They are not interested. So in conclusion, realistically, all I can say to people is we're doing to the utmost of what we can behind the scenes, but I am but a tiny gear in a very, very large machine. And ultimately, right, unless we're going to propose this route forward for foundation and laying out the roadmap for that, there is nothing to update. There are no major updates to go through. V3 lands next month. That's going to be the new mobile station for everybody to use. So like I was saying, behind the scenes, there are things going on. Everybody, if you're aware of the United Vision, you're aware of what me and Strafe proposed in that United Vision, and sort of as a guideline what we would try to aim to do. And as to that, we are figuring out different things, and something for us moving forward in the future, prior to possibly following this path of foundation and enterprise, is a pay per job and governance rule job list. And this is going to be really important, right? Because what's going to happen is you decide to yourselves, we want to follow this route. We agree through governance. It gets passed. Now what we need is a connection between this chain and TFL, as to which TFL would go, you need to update A, B, C, D, E, and F. And then we would come back to our chain and go, right, here's job A, B, C, D, E, and F. Here's the rules list for those jobs. Get them done, you get paid X amount of money. This is all about creating an environment where you're not reliant on a team. And I think that's something we need to point really get across to people is this is about creating a cure. And that's what Foundation and Enterprise is all about. Enterprise brings a very, very advanced system of what this is. And this is more or less something just to tie us over so we can get multiple developers working from multiple different places and never have to rely on an L1 that's going to just keep burying their head in the sand. And I get it. And this is kind of why they're working for free, because then they're not held to any sort of accountability. And ultimately, right, if you're paid to advance the chain, then you should advance the chain, right? And if you're doing your job correctly, you shouldn't ever run into any issues as to where the money's gone, what it's been for, and what it's gone on, because ultimately you've gone there, you've done the job, and you've been paid for what was part of the rule list for the job itself. And this is so important moving forward that we understand. I know it keeps going from dark to light mode depending on if I open 2 tabs or 3 tabs, but we've got rework implementation of the burn tax to lower barriers, and this is really a 10-10 solution at this point. As it stands, it's complex, and what this does is it just takes everything and ties it up in a nice neat bow where it's highly acceptable. Nothing actually changes, it's just packaged differently. You've also got the disabling of USTC minting. There are people behind the scenes, right? If it comes down bite to crunch and we need an SDK update, we'll get an SDK update. And there's so many people who like to fearmonger and sell fear to people, and that's not the aim here. The aim here is to get you to a level of what the mass media are now picking up. And it's the simple fact that everything they're building over on Luna is cross-Cosmos chain compatible. And it's good for the whole Cosmos. It's not just for one chain. And this is why I really want to follow this path of going down this route. But like I said at the beginning of this video, right, what I think is going to be the downfall is the amount of people that are going to want to be involved in this. And like I said, I get it. We all, in a sense, right, represent the chain as validators. I get it. But imagine, right, you've got your own third-party DEX, you've got your own third-party systems, you've got all of these different things, right? But at the same time, you want to be part of a group of people who are going to be very specific to the task, right? So you're going to need 2 L2s, 2 L1s, a couple of chain gurus, and those people I mentioned being involved just because of the simple fact they handle the endpoint infrastructure currently, right? Now, if we throw every validator in the mix with all of their different projects, right, we're either going to get people who want to privatize this whole connection to benefit themselves. We've seen it time and time again. And a good example of this is Astroport. Nobody said to Astroport, what do we need to do to keep you on chain? It was just a simple, let them shut down. We'll take the technology for ourselves, implement it on our own station, but screw the mainstream 95%. Just worry about making ourselves look better. And this is not what the Cosmos is about. The Cosmos is about helping your neighbor and sort of not going down this line of rent-seeking behavior. So when the mass media start to pick up on stuff like this and you start to see articles like this, you really start to actually articulate in your mind as to what we're getting at here on the channel with this whole idea of the image portrayed by the public is the image that is picked up by mass media, which is then portrayed to the mass broader perspective of the cryptocurrency environment. And this is all good news for us. It's good because ultimately we're all going to move together in sync, in harmony, regardless of us all getting on and sort of working together. But like I said, too many chefs on this is simply going to ruin the soup. And I think it really does come down to something as silly as that we're really our own worst enemy when it comes to this. Because for me, like I said, you really just need the very specific people involved that are going to be able to take what TFL is saying by A, B, C, and D and going, right, these are the tasks, and then going over to this pay per job, governance rule job list and saying, right, here's A, B, C, and D. This is how much you're going to get for this one. Bish, bash, bosh, go. And it's at that point, you've solved one of the biggest issues on this chain as to who are we going to get to come and do things. Well, we simply outline those tasks, attach a bounties for it, and watch people come running, crashing, crying, crumbling as to why they didn't get there first. oh, I didn't get enough time, it's unfair. And you'll have people squabbling over wanting to deploy stuff on the chain for the simple fact they can turn up, do the job, and get paid. And it really is as simple as that. A developer likes to just be shown A to Z, how they're going to get there, how much they're going to get at the end. And honestly, if you're really that worried, you could provide like a 10% bono for picking up the job and getting it done within like a certain amount of time. There's so many different incentives you can add to something like this, but ultimately this should all be a path now to get towards being symbiotic, being in parity, and being able to utilize everything they intend to offer over here for all of the cosmos. Because like I said, right, this isn't just about working in harmony with Luna. It's about interconnecting with the whole broader cosmos ecosystem. And for me, you just need a very core group of people doing this. We've seen what happens when you've got a group like Terra Rebels, where there's hundreds of different divisions of 100 different groups of people who've got all of these amazing different. One guy wants to do merch, one guy wants to do marketing, the other guy wants to. Everybody's bickering, and it will just implode on itself. It won't get anywhere. Whereas what we need right now is streamlined development from start to finish. And as it stands, that is the actual status of the chain, because like I said, this all now falls back on the L1, right? Because they're the ones who have control over the repository. They're the ones who are looked to by the community. So it's at a certain point, they need to open the doors up. They need to either accept new developers, or they need to help the community find a new group of developers, which I can tell you something's not hard. Okay, it's really, really not hard. There's people screaming out for work all across the cosmos from small chains like ourselves. We've been fooled into thinking there isn't, right? It's a very strange situation when you're kind of on the outside and you don't quite see what's going on behind the scenes. From what I've been told, depending on what TFL asks for, in order to pull this all off, the original part of it's around a month's worth of work, right? So this all gets broken down into these different kind of tools we're going to be building to get us to the point where you've got a very substantial array of tools at your hand, at your beckon and at your call, and you can deploy multi-chain, right? You can go and you can bring liquidity from other chains back here and bulking up our own chain. And it's all going to be something, right, where it needs to get ironed out right now, and then it needs to get proposed. And ultimately, what is being put up here is likely the key to getting it done. But let me know what you folks think. Let me know how you're feeling, and let me know where you're kind of at with things, how you feel like things are right now. Because as it stands for me, we're quite bound together right now as a community. Right, we're all voting together in sync, in harmony, but it's the deployment level of things. And this is kind of really good evidence right here, just to finish the video off, as to what's kind of really key evidence to them burying their heads and being very slow to do things. And it's the fact that the dynamic commission module erases any need to enforce any commission rates, because it's all been built into the dynamic commission module. That's still not being deployed by the L1, right? It's still not been put into work by the L1. It's at this point, right, that I'm just a person, I'm just a gear in a very, very large machine, and there's only so much that I can do. I think a lot of people here understand how much I put into this to get very little out of it, and it's because of the simple fact that I don't do this to get something out of it. I'm here because I want to be here. I love the community, and I love supporting everybody through this journey and sort of giving people my perspective on things as to how I'm feeling, how I'm thinking, and how I'm vibing right now. But like I said, let me know how you're thinking, how you're feeling. Other than that, folks, stay safe, stay humble, stay aware. As always, I'll catch you in the next one.